Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so very much for clicking on today's video. I greatly appreciate having you. It is that time of the year again. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? I did this and 2024 was gone. I believe this is my second. It could be my third, but from memory, this is my second video of doing these are the books that I want to read in blank year. So last year I did 16 books that I wanted to read in 2024, and I literally just went back to that video and I looked at what like my rating was, like how many books I actually read from that pile. I chose 16 books. I remember just being really excited. There's just so many books that I wanted to read, and it's for a good reason. But then I only ended up reading 8 books. So technically I failed it. I had an F. I could easily talk about 25 books that I want to read in 2025, and that just seems extremely satisfying to do. But like I said in the last year's video, I don't want to put too much pressure on myself. I only have 10 books. This is still a lot, but I only have 10 because last year I literally failed it and it sucks. It sucks. I wish I could say I read more, but there's just too many good books in such short time. In this video, I'm going to be talking about 10 books that I want to read in 2025. I have them all in 3 categories. I have romance, literary fiction, and then I have fantasy. Let's start off with the biggest pile, which I'm not surprised, is romance. I'm honestly a little embarrassed to be talking about this book. How long has this book been on my TBR? How many videos have I made where I'm saying I'm going to read this? And here she is again. This is The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. What's up with it? I don't know why I have yet to read this book. I know that I'm going to enjoy Ali Hazelwood's books, and I know that I'm gonna have a good old time. For whatever reason, there's just so many other books that I end up picking up. I literally have read so many books this year, and this one couldn't be one of them. I am very sad to say that the first book on my 2025 TBR is going to be The Love Hypothesis. I literally said last year, like, I know this is the year. So I feel like I can't even say that this year, because what if it's not? But I feel more confident. It was literally on my 2024 TBR video. It was on my Valentine's TBR video. It was on my summer TBR video. Here it is again. So it's at least 4 times, and I know it's more than that. But this is a good old enemies like to lovers. It's like a rivals workplace sort of thing. Ali Hazelwood is the queen of like STEM romance books. I pinky promise you, it's pinky promise right now. I pinky promise you that I'm going to read this in 2025. No, I can't break that promise. Then to the next book. It is Done and Dusted. This is by Lila Sage. This is the first book in the Blue Ranch. It's so fun how like I have no idea, but that's popping up into my head. Like it's buried in there in my brain and I don't even know if it's right. I think it's called the Blue Ranch series. This is the first book in the Blue Ranch series. I've heard so many good things about this series, and I want to say it's like Swift and Saddled and like the other Lost and Lassoed. Such cute names, such cute covers. I've heard so many good things about the entire series, but like I've heard really good things about each and individual book. This is a cowboy romance, small town. In 2024, I discovered that that's my thing. I don't know too much about it, and that's how I love it. I just know that it's cowboy and it's spicy and it's really popular, and that tends to be my sort of jam. And that's the research that I do, is if I see a lot of people talk about a specific book, my interest is really piqued and I end up buying it and I end up loving it. So definitely will be picking this book up because I found my love for cowboy romance in 2024, so I know that I want to keep on reading more. And speaking of cowboy small town romance perfect books, I also really want to read the 3rd book in the Chestnut Spring series. This is Powerless. It's by Elsie Silver. I read the first book, Heartless and Flawless, this year. Amazing. 10 out of 10. Highly recommend. So I know that I want to read and probably finish the series in 2025. I debated on putting any series in this pile, and I wondered if I should just do standalones, but I just am way too excited, and I like had to talk about this book. I haven't even read it. I'm just obsessed with the series, and I know that I'm gonna love this book. I mean, I hope. I really hope. But it's on Kindle Unlimited. It's the writing. Elsie Silver's writing is so amazing. The grumpiness, whatever trope it is, ends up being absolutely amazing. The first book, Flawless, was forced proximity and I loved it. They had to like work together. Heartless, it was single dad nanny trope and I loved it. Like whatever trope this is, I'm gonna love it. I'm so excited to read this book. The cover is absolutely beautiful. So I'm honestly not surprised to see 2 cowboy romance books on my TBR for the year. And I feel very confident to say that I'm gonna read these books. Then the last book in the romance section, this is Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. I've heard such amazing things about Abby Jimenez. Her romance books I feel like are up there in like popularity and like the best romance books ever. Well, as from the cover, he's like works with animals as in the country and then she's a city girl. They're like complete opposites, but then their worlds end up colliding and like mixing together. I've had these on my Libby app, like borrowed, ready to go, and the loan always ends up expiring before I get the chance to read it, so I don't end up picking them up. But there's been so many times where I'm like, that is the next book that I'm going to read, and then something always ends up happening where I end up picking up another book. But I'm very confident to say that I'm 100% going to be reading these books, and I hope that I read them like during the Valentine's season, or if not, before, because I would hate to put these on another TBR. Let's talk about the next genre here. I got 3 books. This is literary fiction. So the very first book that I want to talk about, it is A Man Called Ove. This is by Frederick Backman. I've heard Ove and then I pronounce it as O, so I don't know how to pronounce the name, but this is from Frederick Backman. I found this book as a recommendation on, I believe her YouTube is A Clockworks Reader. She was reading books that made her cry, and she read this book in that video and she was bawling her eyes out, and I immediately, I think I put it like on my wish list or like cart. I can't remember if I got it for my birthday, whatever it was. I ended up having it in my hands, and it's been well over a year that I've now had it on my shelf and on my physical TBR. I know that it's based about like neighbors, and he is a ultimate grump, like just really sad and like not happy with his life and just like sort of like get off my lawn type of guy. And then he ends up building this relationship with these neighbors, and it's just like a heart-wrenching, beautiful story where it's going to make you cry. And I love books that are like that, but I always end up getting so scared or not in the mood. But this is extremely high on my TBR, and whenever I get the itch to want to cry, or just, yeah, when I want to cry, I'm gonna pick this book up. Then the next 2 books that I really want to read next year, it is How to Stop Time and The Humans by Matt Haig. Matt Haig wrote my favorite book ever, The Midnight Library, and I love that I have other books by Matt Haig, because then I'm like, I have other 5-star books on my shelf. But why is it that knowing that I still don't end up picking it up? I am really excited, but I'm also like scared that it's gonna be like a complete flop on these books. And like, what if I read them and it's like a 2-star? Like, that would be awful. But whether it's that or I'm just not in the mood to read it, I just haven't picked them up. But they sound absolutely amazing. So it says that Tom just moved back to London to settle down to become a history teacher. And while he may look like he lives an ordinary life, he has a rare condition. He's been alive for centuries. That's right. So in this one, he's lived like extraordinary things. Like, he's performed with Shakespeare. He's explored the high seas with Captain Cook. But it says now he just wants a normal life. But it says, unfortunately, the group that protects people like him has one rule: never fall in love. But on his first day of being a history teacher, he meets a captivating French teacher who seems fascinated by him, and now the one thing Tom can't have just happens to be the one thing that might save him. So he's literally like a time traveler. No, time traveler means I think you're like jumping from time to time to time. No, he literally is just like 100 years old, and it's just lived, well, it says lived centuries. And the one thing he can't do is fall in love, or he'll die or something. I don't know. How amazing is that? Sounds like a freaking romance book. You see, I read it and I'm like, that sounds absolutely amazing. And then there's like 4 other books that I want to read at the same time when it's time to pick up a new book, that I don't end up picking this book up. Like, this is how serious I am. I'm reading a book right now. I'm like, when I finish that book, I'm picking this up. That's how like sure I feel and confident I feel that I'm going to pick this up. But I also feel like picking up the 5 other books that I talked about. So that's how it ends up, like books getting pushed back. But anywhoosie, This one sounds absolutely amazing. It's a rollicking novel about math and murder, poetry and peanut butter, and casts a sharp eye on the triumphs and foibles of our weird and wonderful species. Oh yeah, he's a Martian. The main character is not from this world, and he ends up having to like disguise himself, and so he listens to like rock and roll and eats peanut butter. And then something ends up happening. I can't remember, but I think like the literal title's called The Humans. He ends up like discovering the beauty and love about like humans, and I think it like romanticizes us as humans. It sounds so cute. The last stack of books here, the last genre that I'm going to be talking about, it is fantasy. So the very first book is Powerless. This is by Lauren Roberts. I am also still very scared of fantasy. That was one thing that I said in last year's video, was how intimidated I am by fantasy, and here we are. I still am. I hope in the next year's video I'm going to be confidently saying that I love fantasy and that I'm not scared of it no more, but we still are. This is a very popular book. This is probably one of the most popular books on social media. This is a like rivals to like lovers and like ultimate, like they actually are going to kill each other. That's how much they hate each other. It is like a Hunger Games thing where they're having to fight for their lives. I am very intimidated, and I'm going to explain why I am intimidated with the last book that's in this pile. People say that it's easy to read and it's easy to understand, and the like rivals to lovers, like where they're almost going to kill each other because how much they hate each other and how much they're rivals, sounds so intriguing, because you know that they're going to end up falling in love and being together, and like it's going to be like the ultimate slow burn, and like the angst and like the actual, like when people talk about enemies to lovers, like this is like the ultimate, that like they actually despise each other, not the dislike, not that they had like a bad encounter and now it's talking about that they're enemies. Like this is like through centuries and like through their families, like they have to hate each other, and that sounds very intriguing and exciting to read. And I've never read the synopsis on this one. No. The next book, it is The Goblet of Fire by Harry Potter. By Harry Potter. This is Harry Potter, The Goblet of Fire. This is by J.K. Rowling. Look at how chunky this book is. This book looks scary. It's so big. I am so excited. I literally have this borrowed on Kindle Unlimited. I have it on my Kindle downloaded. I am ready to read this book. I have been making my way through the Harry Potter series, and I am having the best time ever. Seriously, the best experience. And now we are on to the fourth book. And I know that I'm going to be reading this in 2025. And this is where I was kind of like iffy if I wanted to put series in this video, but I wanted to make it like easy and realistic for myself. Like I know that I'm going to read this, so like why not talk about it? The book is so amazing. The magic system, the whole like world building. This one specifically is like an Olympics book. I'm so excited. The relationships that these characters have with one another, the relationship that these kids have with the teachers, it's just so amazing. It's high stakes, it's intense. There's like a little bit of like, I think suspense is the right word. There's like suspense. It's like you're eager to see what's going to happen next. It's absolutely amazing. There's a reason why these books are extremely popular. If you haven't read this series, I'm literally gonna read the fourth book, and I'm like confident to tell you that the entire series is amazing. The last book that is on my TBR for 2025, it is Fourth Wing. This is by Rebecca Yarros. I picked it up, I read some, actually read like 25 pages, and I ended up soft DNFing it. And guys, this is where I feel like my fear of fantasy books is actually valid and it's real. Not that no one told me that it wasn't. The reason that I don't pick up fantasy books is because I'm afraid that I'm not going to be able to understand the words, like because they're like new words and words I've never heard about, and literally made up words for this book specifically. Like, I mean, at least that's how I understand it. Like, writers literally make up a whole new world. Like with Harry Potter, they literally made up a whole world just for that series. So there's words and there's descriptions and there's just things that are happening in this book that I literally am learning for the first time. And what is the main thing on why I ended up DNFing it was because I was in the middle of moving. I moved into my new home now, And the last thing that I wanted to do after moving and just being exhausted and laying in bed and like wanting to decompress, the last thing that I wanted to do was pick up a book that I literally could not understand and was having to reread the same thing over and over again to be able to like make it sense and like make it click. So that was the main reason. The other reason was I was not able to understand the way that they were describing these buildings and like where they were, like their surroundings. I was having a hard time like really trying to make sense on what they were saying, and maybe this is where I just need to literally just search up like fan art. But that was one thing that was discouraging me, was I was like, it doesn't make sense where we are. Like I don't understand this building or this classroom or these stairs or like any of this. I couldn't, oh no, one of my lights went out. Sorry, I'm sorry, hopefully it's still good lighting. I literally couldn't really understand. I was like, I don't know what this like building is supposed to look like. And then I was talking to my friend about it because she devoured this book. And I also have another friend that's devouring this book. And they're like telling me, read it, read it, read it. But the reason that I was talking to them about it, and she was like, no, honestly, I get you. I wasn't able to really like understand like what they were saying about like the building. But she's like, but I just like kept on reading. I'm like, okay, so maybe I was just hyper fixating on it too hard, and maybe I should just keep on reading it. Like maybe it really doesn't matter that I'm not able to understand it. Like the descriptions of like the building is the main thing. But when I tell you, I was reading this on a flight back from visiting my family, and my boyfriend picked me up from the airport, and I literally talked about this book for like 15 minutes because I was so excited about it. Telling him all of these things, like describing the dragons, describing the things that the character was doing, and I was like, this is insane, this is so cool, and I was enjoying it. So that's where it's hard, is I was enjoying it while I was reading it, but I was just having a hard time. So maybe I shouldn't just hyperfixate on like words so much, and if I have a hard time understanding a word and like making it make sense, maybe just like keep going. Or what they were saying, maybe this is something that you thought about. Both of my friends that have read this book and devoured it and loved it said that they loved the dramatic like audiobook. What's it called? The dramatized audiobook. So maybe that's what I need to do, is that will help me not hyperfixate on the words because it's literally getting it pronounced for me already. So maybe that's what I'll do. All that to say is I already gave it a shot. I did enjoy it, but I still ended up soft DNFing it. But I'm very confident to put this on my list, and this is not going to be a repeat. I'm not going to be putting this on my 2026 TBR. How crazy does 2026 sound? That sounds so far away. That concludes my entire 2025 TBR. These are all of my like highly anticipated 2025 reads. These are all the books that I will read in 2025, and I hope that you had a lot of fun watching. I would love it if you were to comment down below the books that are on your TBR for next year. I had so much fun making this video, and I will see you guys next year. I love doing that. It's so cringe. It's so well, I don't think it's cringe. People always say it's so embarrassing and like cringe when you go, I'll see you next year, but I think it's funny. I think it's funny. I'll see you next year. Okay, thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.